When people imagine intelligence work, they usually picture satellites, hacked phones, and men in trench coats. But one of MI5's most valuable tools is much older and much more human. Not spyware, not facial recognition, not some secret gadget hidden in a lamp. A person, someone on the inside. Someone close enough to hear the whispers, spot the changes, and reveal what a terror cell is planning before the attack ever happens. In Britain, these people are known as covert human intelligence sources, or CHIS. MI5 also refers to them as agents. They are not employees of the security service. They are volunteers who secretly provide information, often at enormous personal risk. MI5 says these sources have helped stop multiple terrorist plots and attacks. So how does MI5 actually recruit someone inside a terrorist network? Not the Hollywood version. Not the fantasy. The real version, at least, the part the public is allowed to know. This is how Britain's domestic intelligence service turns ordinary people, insiders, and sometimes deeply conflicted individuals into secret informants. First, it helps to understand what MI5 is. MI5 is the UK's domestic security service. Its job is to protect national security, including by countering terrorism, espionage and hostile state activity inside the UK. Unlike police, MI5's main role is intelligence, not arrest. That means its mission is often to discover threats early enough for others to disrupt them. And in terrorism cases, human sources can be priceless. Phones can be encrypted. Messages can disappear. Meetings can happen face to face. But a trusted insider can reveal things technology never will. Who is serious, who is bluffing, who is escalating, and who is about to act. That is why MI5 says covert human intelligence sources provide some of its most important information. So where do these sources come from? Publicly, MI5 does not publish a playbook, and for obvious reasons. But it does say its agents are volunteers and that they work with MI5 for a variety of reasons. That line matters. Volunteers does not necessarily mean they woke up one morning and applied for the job. It means they are not simply conscripted into service. There has to be a decision, however reluctant, however complicated, to cooperate. That cooperation can begin in different ways. Sometimes a person may already have access to extremists or suspicious circles. Sometimes they may witness behavior that alarms them. Sometimes they may be motivated by fear, conscience, self-preservation, money, revenge, ideology, or the desire to protect family members. And sometimes, according to MI5's own public material, people approach MI5 themselves with information, and the service says it treats such contact with the highest confidentiality. That means recruitment is not always a dramatic, cold approach in a parking garage. Sometimes it begins with a quiet tip, a worried conversation, a person caught between loyalty and horror. But MI5 does not just grab anyone with a story, but before a potential source is ever used, there is an assessment process. Again, the exact operational details are secret. But MI5 says that even before a case officer can approach someone, they must go through a detailed internal process and gain approval. It also says reviews continue throughout the entire time MI5 is in contact with an agent. That suggests something crucial. Recruitment is not improvised. It is structured, documented, reviewed. Because from MI5's perspective, a source can be both invaluable and dangerous. A bad source can lie. A compromised source can expose an operation. A reckless source can increase the threat instead of reducing it. And so the service has to judge several things at once. Does this person really have access? Are they believable? Are they stable enough? Are they acting freely? And can the relationship be run lawfully, safely, and proportionately? Those are exactly the kinds of concerns reflected in the UK's official CHIS Code of Practice, which says authorisations must be necessary and proportionate, with attention to risk, management, record-keeping, and oversight. Then comes the most delicate stage, the approach. This is the part films love to exaggerate. A stranger sits down. A file is opened. A threat is made. A deal is struck. Reality is almost certainly slower, quieter, and much more cautious. MI5 says its sources work with specifically trained staff members known as case officers or agent handlers. These are the people responsible for managing the relation. Publicly, MI5 does not spell out exactly how those first conversations happen, and it would be dangerous if it did, but the broad logic is easy to understand. If you are trying to recruit someone close to a terror network, the first objective is not drama, it is trust. The person has to believe three things: that MI5 is real, that cooperation can be protected, and that saying yes will not instantly destroy their life. For some people, the hardest barrier is fear of the network itself. For others, it is fear of the state. And for many, it is both. So the pitch is rarely just help us. It is more likely some version of you are in danger, that other people are in danger. You can help stop something terrible. And there are formal systems around how this relationship is managed. Beat, that last part matters because MI5 operates under law, not outside it. MI5 says the use of covert human intelligence sources must be authorized by designated senior staff, and that its use of these powers is overseen by the Investigatory Powers Commissioner's Office, or IPCO. The legal framework is rooted in the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act 2000, usually called REPA, and the official CHIS Code of Practice. That does not mean the system is free from controversy. Far from it. In 2021, the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Criminal Conduct Act amended the law to place on a statutory footing the power for certain agencies and public authorities to authorize criminal conduct by a CHIS when it is necessary and proportionate for specified purposes. The government says such conduct must remain compatible with the European Convention on Human Rights, and the Investigatory Powers Commissioner reviews use of the power. That law triggered intense debate. Supporters argued that agents embedded in dangerous groups sometimes need legal cover to maintain credibility and access. Critics warned that any power like that risks abuse if oversight fails.
And that debate reveals the core tension in this whole world.
To stop terror networks, intelligence services may need people inside those networks. But the closer a source gets to violent extremists, the harder the ethical questions become. Once someone agrees to cooperate, the relationship does not become easier. It becomes more complicated. A source has to be handled, not in the cinematic sense, in the bureaucratic, operational and psychological sense. MI5 says sources work alongside trained case officers. The CHIS Code of Practice describes the need for management structures, welfare considerations, risk assessment, record keeping and regular review. That means the service is not just collecting secrets, it is running a fragile human relationship. Because informants are not machines. They get scared. They change their minds. They become unreliable. They may try to manipulate the service. They may exaggerate their access. They may withhold details, and in the worst case, they may become double players pretending to help while actually protecting the group they came from. So intelligence from a source cannot simply be accepted because it sounds dramatic. It has to be checked, compared and tested against other intelligence. This is one reason human intelligence is powerful but also risky. The best source in the world can save lives. The wrong source can send investigators in circles. Beat? There is another reason MI5 values insiders so highly. Terror networks are not made only of hardened fanatics. Many include hangers-on, sympathizers, enablers, relatives, friends, messengers, or people on the edge who are not fully committed. For intelligence services, that matters. Because the perfect source is not always the loudest extremist in the room. Sometimes it is the overlooked one. The driver, the fixer, the friend who notices someone changing, the associate who hears the wrong conversation at the wrong time. Human sources are often valuable precisely because they are invisible inside the environment. And that can make them far more useful than high-tech surveillance alone. Beat. Of course, not every recruitment succeeds. Some people refuse, some disappear, some are judged too risky to use. Some may have access, but no credibility. Others may be under such pressure that any cooperation would put them in immediate danger. MI5's public language is careful, but its existence of case officers, approvals and continuous review tells us something important. Source recruitment is selective, not casual. The service is not looking for gossip. It is looking for intelligence that can stand up under pressure.
And in counter-terrorism, timing is everything.
Knowing that someone is radical is useful.
Knowing that someone has begun planning is more useful.
Knowing when intent turns into action can be the difference between surveillance and a funeral. Jag tror till det kischen sägs den så erici kanem sir the Taliban training Hugh Banner's Pittman. Underment for the international treatments. That training practice I campusinte the any concern that the main expadian to training you being suds. You can start spite pin sapping. After the dwarfet and you'd all practice that the chit duvetchanis in a war pin sapping. There is also a myth worth killing here. People often imagine informants as traitors, but in counter-terrorism the reality is often morally messier. A source might be someone who is frightened by where a group is heading. Someone trying to prevent mass murder. Someone trapped in a world they want to escape.
Someone who made bad choices but draws the line at innocent people dying.
MI5 itself publicly describes agents who help in this way as unsung heroes. That is, of course, MI5's framing. Civil liberties groups and watchdogs would stress the dangers of secrecy, the potential for overreach and the need for robust oversight, and the existence of parliamentary and independent oversight bodies reflects exactly that concern. The Intelligence and Security Committee oversees the intelligence agency's policies, administration, expenditure and operations, while IPCO oversees the use of investigatory powers. So the public story is not simple heroism. It is a constant balancing act between security, secrecy, legality and accountability. And that may be the biggest truth about how MI5 recruits secret informants inside terror networks. It is not really about persuasion alone, it is about judgment. Judging who has access, judging who can be trusted, judging whether the intelligence is real, judging how far the state can go, and judging whether the risk of doing nothing is even worse. In public, MI5 reveals only fragments, volunteers, case officers, approvals, oversight, lawful authorization, continuous review. The rest remains hidden for obvious reasons. But even from those fragments, the outline is clear. Behind almost every successful counter-terrorism campaign is not just technology, but human access, a conversation nobody else hears, a warning nobody else gets, a person inside the circle who decides for whatever reason to talk.
And sometimes that decision changes everything.
Because in the end, the most important secret in intelligence work is not a weapon, or a wiretap, or a classified file. It is a human being willing to whisper the truth before violence begins.